but she says he has a favor to ask. He summons his son, Woojin, and requests that she bless him with marriage. He mentions that they've grown up together all this time. Bingyi, seemingly a bit slow on the uptake, notes that they haven't seen each other in 3 years and asks who Woojin wants to marry. That's when Hu explains that he wants her to marry Woojin. She is shocked, asking what he's talking about since they don't even like each other. The general, however, says that's irrelevant. For the first time in thousands of years, a woman is ruling the city of Yun, and rumors of the kingdom's weakening are spreading. If she ascends to the throne alone, things will only get worse. However, she could easily silence everyone by marrying Woojin. The people behind him nod, agreeing that it makes sense. Besides, young Master Woojin is very handsome and would be a perfect match. Levity, however, is furious, calling the general disgusting for putting Her Majesty in such a position. Bingyi seems torn, unsure of how to respond. Dongwu sees the opportunity he's been waiting for. He steps forward, prompting the old man to ask where he's going. Dongwu grabs Bingyi's arm and says she shouldn't let threats dictate her decisions. Everyone has the right to make the choices that bring them the most happiness. Bingyi, flustered, doesn't know how to respond. Dongwu then asks the others how they can shamelessly force something like this. That's when Wei Ming recognizes him as the same boy who gave up the armor yesterday. Bingyi tries to apologize and says she won't accept the proposal. However, Hu interrupts, stating that he has worked tirelessly for this kingdom and all he asks for today is a reward. He advises her to think carefully about her decision. Lottie draws his bow and asks if the general is trying to force her to abdicate the throne this way. Wei Ming also steps in, warning the general to tread carefully. However, Huan declares that he holds all the military power in this place and asks if they're truly ready to start a war. Bingyi lowers her head, asks everyone to stop, and says she agrees with the general's words. Dongwu, however, bursts out laughing. He says that as the rightful heir to the throne, Bingyi has more claim to it than anyone else and should fight for it. He turns to Huo and asks why everyone is so afraid of him. The general approaches and asks who this child is. Dongwu spits in his face, calling him just a low-ranking general of the former Demon King and questioning why he has so much military power. In the end, he's just a lackey, so it doesn't make sense for him to act so arrogantly. All this while patting the fool's face. To top it off, Dongwu declares that Bingyi is not only the most formidable and powerful person in the kingdom, but also the most beautiful. So how could that strange son of his ever deserve her? The enraged general tells Dongwu to shut up and asks who in the world would be worthy of her, if not his son, who is a great soldier. The cheeky Dongwu claims that he is. After all, 2 days ago in the cave they connected on a deep level. Dongwu is confident that the damn general will finally kill him now. Lottie looks devastated while Mei Wei mutters that she knew this would happen. The audience begins to whisper that during the Blue Union invasion, Dongwu was the first to stand up and fight against them. Meanwhile, Bingyi is emotional, moved by how far Dongwu is willing to go for her. The general, however, asks if Dongwu truly wants to die that badly. Of course, Dongwu does, pointing at his neck and saying that if the general has the guts, he should just strike there. Otherwise, he'll lose his head, as Dongwu not only publicly humiliated him, but also tarnished the dignity of Her Majesty. For all these unforgivable offenses, the general declares that he will grant Dongwu's wish. Activating a powerful technique, his fist glows and everyone begins to flee. In an instant, he stretches his arm back and punches Dongwu straight in the chest. Wei Ming rushes forward, shouting that it's too late now, while Dongwu cheers, telling Hao Jingna to wait for him. He'll finally reunite with her. The entire area explodes. Flames rise as everyone watches in shock, but Woojin appears confused. Someone emerges from the chaos, and Woojin wonders how this is even possible. Dongwu had received a token from the Demon King's military order. Because of this token, he immediately jumped 40 levels and gained a passive ability. When his health drops below 30%, his defense increases fiffold. Worse yet, every 15 attacks he receives are reflected back, dealing critical damage. The onlookers whisper that such a token can only be granted by Her Majesty. As far as they know, only the Demon King himself could bestow such a blessing. It turns out Bingyi was the one who gave Dongwu the token. She explains that her grandfather and father had entrusted the token to Huan because of his loyalty in life and death. However, now she decided to give it to Dongwu, granting him the right to become a general and lead part of the demon army. Huan doesn't look too impressed, assuming no one would dare betray him. He scans the room, waiting to see if anyone will challenge him. But Wei Ming steps forward and congratulates Dongwu, acknowledging him as the new general. Lottie decides to follow suit, reasoning that if Wei Ming supports him, it's best to do the same. Soon, Huan's soldiers begin recognizing Dongwu as the new general. No one wanted to align with anyone other than the Queen's supporters. This pleases everyone except Dongwu, who is frustrated by the turn of events. Left with no choice, Huan concedes, saying that since she entrusted the military order emblem to Dongwu, it proves she trusts him. However, he questions how such a weak soldier will command an entire army. To prove himself, Dongwu will need to lead a team through the ancient demon cavern, a test of survival only for those deemed worthy by the kings of old. The elders shout at Huan, calling the test ridiculous, as no one has survived the cavern in the past 100 years. Bingyi agrees, pointing out that the place is considered forbidden, as everyone who enters dies. But Dongwu's eyes light up with excitement, A cave where no one has survived in 100 years? Perfect. The general laughs, calling them all cowards. Dongwo raises his hand, agreeing with the general and asking where this ancient demon cavern is. He's ready to go now. His friends are wide-eyed in disbelief. 200 years ago, during the Great Crisis, the Demon King sacrificed himself to protect his people, sealing the last demonic element in the cavern for the next king to claim. However, no demon has managed to pass the test since then. Wei Ming explains that entering the cavern requires at least 2 people. Who else would dare go with Dongwo? The soldiers murmur among themselves, wondering who's crazy enough to volunteer. The general declares that if Dongwo wants to take the test, it's up to him to find a partner. That's when someone raises their hand. It's Wu Jin. His father slaps him across the face, demanding to know when he started making his own decisions. But Wu Jin calmly responds, asking if his father thinks he's inferior. The soldiers whisper that someone like Wu Jin, the future of their race, shouldn't risk himself. But Wu Jin insists that only one approved by the ancients can inherit the king's power, and if there's going to be a new demon king, it should be him. His father doesn't look pleased, but the decision is made. The next day, Duko approaches Wu Jin, congratulating him on the choice. He suggests that since Dongwu seems so weak, this could be an opportunity to kill him in the cavern. Out of nowhere, Wu Jin starts straightening his hair, saying he knows exactly what he's doing. Meanwhile, Meyer warns Dongwu that Wu Jin is selfish and that he should be careful. But Dongwu is thrilled, as Wu Jin's presence increases his chances of dying. Suddenly, Wei Ming arrives, addressing Dongwu as general and presenting him with the best buff and healing potions in the kingdom. Dongwu thanks him, but is obviously unhappy about it. Soon, everyone gathers at the entrance to the ancient demon cavern. Dongwu hands Wu Jin some potions. Meyer asks if they're ready, and Bingyi, standing strong and powerful, tells Dongwu that he must survive. While Wu Jin stares ahead, declaring that the next demon king of this place is about to be born, the formation activates and the golden circle disappears, taking both of them with it. Inside the cavern, Dongwu unlocks the mission Test of the Ancestors. Invisible rank D monsters are already observing them. Wu Jin comments that he can imagine the kinds of monsters that live in this place. Dongwu remembers that Meyer warned him about Wu Jin being very treacherous, so he knows he needs to stay cautious. He spreads his arms wide, announcing that he's only wearing a white armor set, meaning his defense stats are extremely low. Confused, Wu Jin doesn't understand why Dongwu is exposing himself like this when they don't even know who their enemies are. What Wu Jin doesn't know is that Dongwu is eagerly waiting for him to stab him in the back. Wu Jin summons a red blade and Dongwu grows excited, convinced that his moment has finally arrived. Suddenly, someone yells "flower" as something flashes past Dongwu. A creature appears, and in the next second, it's already been sliced in half. Dongwu is confused by Wu Jin's incredible potential, but before he can react, a swarm of creatures begins attacking them. Wu Jin stretches out his arm and summons another flower. As the creatures close in, he releases a flurry of petals into the air. A sudden burst of energy from his hands creates countless slashes, shredding the creatures to pieces. Wu Jin remarks that it's impressive Dongwu had already detected those soul bats. Using himself as bait to lure all the creatures and then taking them out in one fell swoop was a clever strategy. However, Wu Jin warns him not to think they are equals just because of something like that. Dongwu readily agrees, saying he knows he's nowhere near Wu Jin's incredible level. Not one to be humble, Wu Jin responds with, "Of course." The scene shifts as Wu Jin unleashes Annihilation Slash and activates the blade of the flower. Dongwu was left bewildered. His plan was to get stabbed in the back by this guy, but Wu Jin is so competitive that he's charging ahead, killing all the monsters instead. To make matters worse, since Wu Jin doesn't stop slaughtering the creatures, are all focused on him, leaving Dongwu in no danger whatsoever. Still, Dongwu is determined to eventually draw all the monsters' attention to himself. He realizes he has 408 points to spend and wonders if he could use them to help with this plan. Later, Wu Jin remarks that according to the map, they've reached the deepest part of the cavern. What strikes him as odd is that Dongwu hasn't killed a single monster yet. Wu Jin doesn't want to believe it, but maybe Dongwu really is just a weakling leeching off his experience. Suddenly, the ground begins to shake. The dungeon activates and a mission appears. Protect the Demon King's messengers. It's a high-difficulty mission with a 20-minute time limit. A horde of creatures emerges, surrounding them. Wu Jin's expression changes immediately. He activates his flower ability and throws it toward one of the creatures, but it effortlessly blocks the attack. The creature opens its arms and fires a laser into the sky, summoning a meteor that crashes down on Wu Jin. The explosion is massive, but Wu Jin survives. Before he can retreat, however, another attack comes from within the flames. Dongwu, meanwhile, is thrilled. He's allocated all 480 points into strength, leaving his defense at the bare minimum. This way, with a single attack, he plans to draw every creature's focus onto himself. Wu Jin, struggling, convinces himself that Dongwu is clearly incomparable to him in this universe. It's obvious now that Dongwu is weak. Wu Jin unleashes his ultimate technique, causing a rain of thorns to fall upon the creatures. However, nothing happens. Standing before the largest creature, Wu Jin demands its death. The thorns embedded in the ground explode, but the monster remains almost completely intact, with 90% of its defenses still up. Wu Jin is at a loss. He's used his final technique and the creature is